Quick shameless plug for Tracy Locke. Founded in 1913. We're actually getting ready to celebrate our 100th anniversary, which I think makes us the oldest agency in the Southwest. I'm not quite sure, but something we're very proud of. Over the next couple of years, we're going to be doing a lot of things to celebrate and honestly publicize the contributions over those 100 years that we've made to the advertising industry in Dallas and nationally and even globally. We are part of the DDB network. Shout out to Jeff. Over 700 employees, offices in Dallas, Wilton, Connecticut, Soho. In Wilton and Soho, we primarily service our Pepsi client. Bentonville, for obvious reasons, and San Francisco as well. I think if you had to sort of put a stamp on who we are as an agency and the kind of clients that we serve, I think it's 95% of our clients are either a brick and mortar entity or something that is sold at retail. So we definitely have a retail focus. And the philosophy that we have, that we practice, is creativity with consequence. So it's actually building on something Jeff had talked about, but we don't believe in creativity just for the sake of being creative. We believe in creativity that's going to deliver a business result. So the consequence being we move businesses. And we do that in a lot of different ways for a lot of different clients. So I mentioned our retail angle as an agency for Hewlett-Packard. We are the global retail shopper marketing agency of record in North America as well. T-Mobile, we do a lot of in-market and partner activations. 7-Eleven, Simpsons Promotions a few years ago. We were, along with Integer and a few others within the Omnicom family, big parts of that. Let's see here, Gatorade Promotions, Tabasco brand marketing, TXU brand marketing. So really, all across the spectrum, again, that common thread is retail. So I'm also going to make another disclaimer about simplicity. Nobody in my family at home cares about what I do. Not my wife, not my oldest son, not my youngest son, except for my beautiful, wonderful 7-year-old daughter. God bless her. She actually takes an interest in what I do. So whenever I'm working at home, because we all have day jobs and presentations like these usually aren't created between 9 and 5, she actually saddles up to me and asks what I'm doing. And kids are amazing gifts to all of us, but perhaps no gift is, outside of their love for you, obviously, no gift is greater than their simple view of things. So as I'm putting a presentation together and she's looking at it, she's sort of my art director, honestly. Has nothing to do with the fact that nobody from the creative department would help me with this presentation. But, I'll take all the help where I can get it. So a lot of simple pictures, but they're here for a reason, to tell a good story. So local marketing, really, if you look at the spectrum of national and local, it's this sort of adjustment between one side where a national brand believes that they have a great pot of coffee and everybody is going to drink from that very same pot. Same flavor, it's damn good coffee, but everybody's going to have the same thing. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, you have your caramel macchiato triple latte with foam, super hot with 2 cups and all that other good stuff, right? These are those brands like Starbucks who understand the value of specializing to a personal taste, to a local flavor. Now, there is value in national marketing in that great big pot of coffee from an efficiency's sake. And there's, in a lot of instances, it's the right thing to do. In a lot of instances also, because of what technology is allowing us to do, this very specialized cup is also appropriate. So local marketing is a very relative term, and I'll talk about that, but it's sort of finding that balance between that big pot of coffee for everybody and the specialty cup, and what you can afford, what makes sense for your brand, and how you go about putting a strategy together for it. Okay, this is a very oversimplified example again, simple. Used to be that a national brand, this is the big pot of coffee example, right? One message across television and maybe a national newspaper, and everybody in the country gets it. Very consistent. Some people still do this. It used to be if they really wanted to get semi-regional, that brand would say, okay, I'm going to advertise to Texas in a different way than I would advertise to everybody else. So everybody inside the state of Texas gets that same message, and maybe I go to those local newspapers in those markets where it's most important for me. Austin American-Statesman, Chronicle, Morning News, and so forth. So when you actually got down to local marketing, this is what everybody perceived it to be. Local car dealership, works with local TV stations, the local newspaper, and broadcasts within DFW. Now again, I oversimplified it because outdoor radio, print, all specialized print, all these entities play a role as well, but you get the point. What's happened over the last 10 years, obviously, as we've talked about for the last day and a half, is technology. Whether it's devices, whether it's the networks, whether it's affiliations with national media entities that are localizing themselves like ESPN Dallas, whether it's the apps, location-based services, media tracking services like RenTrack. I'm fairly tangential, so indulge me. Does everybody know what RenTrack is? Okay. This is like Nielsen on steroids. It's actually still in development, but what these guys are able to do is, to whatever degree the upcoming privacy laws are going to allow them, they can track viewership down to the household level, to a neighborhood level, to a community level, to a market level. Nielsen can't get that specialized. The technology doesn't allow it. RenTrack, for those brands, will give you enough intelligence to be able to serve ads based on a specific household. That's pretty awesome technology, but it's also very big brotherish. So again, they're sort of trying to understand where that balance is between how local can they get without crossing privacy laws that have yet to be sort of stratified. Shopkick, another great tool. We talked about it briefly yesterday, again, fairly tangential. Does everybody know how Shopkick works? Does anyone know what Shopkick is? Okay. It's a fairly new technology that actually came out last summer. Sports Authority and Best Buy, and I believe Macy's were their three primary partners. It's a location-based shopping service. So when you get within range of a store, Shopkick will pop up on your phone if you've loaded the app. And as you're walking through the store, it tells you what you're looking at, what price deals are available. It's a pretty awesome technology, but the way it works, it actually sends out a silent beacon that only your phone or whatever device is enabled can pick up. So as soon as you come within range of that beacon, on it comes. So in the future, what you'll be seeing with this sort of technology is TV spots that can transmit that sound. And all of a sudden, if you have the appropriate app on your phone or whatever device it is, all of a sudden the application pops up. Now, for you tech people who want to refute me, please go ahead. But my very elementary understanding from an account service guy's perspective is that's sort of how it works. But it's pretty neat. So from a local perspective, if you actually wanted to employ this technology at a gymnasium or at an arena, that's the kind of localization you'll be able to do with it. It's really neat. But the point is, technology more than anything else has allowed us to be personal, and personal is good. The more personal, the better, I say. But personal is not local. They're very different things. Personal messages can be local, but local it's not a tactic, it's a mindset. It's the concept of all of us, wherever we live, whether it's a neighborhood, whether it's a street, whether it's a suburb, whether it's a community, whether it's a state, whether it's our country, we feel a bind, a connection with where we live. And any brand that can leverage that connection, that affinity that we feel for where we live, for where we are, whether it's a store or neighborhood or wherever it is, can leverage that and deliver a message that resonates with you because this brand understands where I live and they've given me something that ties into the community that's relevant, that's meaningful, that I can engage with. So it's all about context, specifically of relating to or characteristic of a particular place. Place is a loose term. It can be a house. It can be a neighborhood. Actually, it can be a lot of things. The Earth Day, Greenpeace. That's as local as they want to get. U.S. Army. I'll show some examples about the state of Texas. But again, it's all a relative thing compared to what your brand wants to be, how they want to advertise themselves, and how they want to associate themselves, and honestly, operationally, how they can align themselves and be able to activate on various local levels. What local marketing is about is creating relevant moments of engagement. Again, at whatever level, and I'll walk through how to do this, at whatever level your brand deems it appropriate. Regional market, community store. From a demo perspective, a lifestyle perspective, a mindset perspective, and the bullseye being a relevant perspective. Okay, so I think a lot of times people question how do I make my brand more local? I think that's the wrong question. I think what you should be asking yourself is how local should my brand be? And the way that we look at it from a local marketing perspective is there's basically three pillars, three boxes that you have to check to do local marketing right. The brand. What benefit would your brand add to some local association? And I'll walk through that in a second. Analytics. Do you understand from your business objective, from your business goals, what you need marketing campaigns to do? Do you understand how local you can be? And from a bandwidth perspective, do you have the infrastructure within your agency, and does your client have the infrastructure to deliver on a local marketing campaign? All right. So from a brand, can I add value to the brand with a local association? I'm going to go through a lot of examples. Some make sense for a local marketing approach and some don't. Here's one I don't think does. I mean, does it really matter to you guys when you're going online and you're downloading a movie from Netflix, if they say, hi, Dan in Dallas, which movie would you like? It doesn't really make any difference because Netflix is a very ubiquitous brand online. It adds no benefit to the user based on where they're from. It's a worldwide brand. Here's one whose very brand essence is tied to where it is. I mean, with all due respect to Lone Star Beer, this is the official beer of Texas, right? I mean, it's not that I would know anything about Shiner at all. Come open my refrigerator. But the way that they advertise themselves, the way that they talk about themselves, it is Texas pride. It is brewed in the hill country. They obviously have the majority of their focus on Texas. But what's funny is most of their affinity outside the state of Texas, yeah, it's a good tasting beer, but those outside the state of Texas who really love it, guess what they are? Native Texans. Okay, so I really wish Steve were here because he totally popped the balloon on this. The Pepsi Refresh project. So, the sales results are what they are. There's no disputing that. But what I think was great about the Refresh campaign from our perspective, I was not going to talk about impressions. So just tell Steve that, okay? What was great about this was, we've done local marketing for Pepsi for a long time. And we've always, done your traditional associations with athletes and stadium sponsorships and local bottling initiatives and things like that. And they've always been very successful. But what the Refresh project allowed to do was it actually gave us a platform to engage customers at the most local level possible to find out what was important to them. So what came out of the Refresh project was, hey, I want you to refurbish my local school, a local orchestra. We need to buy instruments. It got to a very granular level. Now, obviously, what's going to change in the coming months is the messaging and how we talk about how we drive purchase and consumption, because obviously, the numbers are what they are, and Pepsi's market share is. I assure you, they're very aware of what their market share is, and they're making some pretty monumental efforts to change that. But the strategy, the way that we went about engaging consumers on a local level, not to pat ourselves on the back, but I thought that was pretty brilliant. It actually allowed us to get down to the neighborhood level. And for a national brand that's ubiquitous from a broadcast perspective, we'd rarely have that opportunity. So it was a very successful initiative from that perspective. Here's one, national brand, ubiquitous, going into grocery stores, as was mentioned earlier, and we're actually helping them in the food service channel. But outside of us going to a Starbucks in an airport, or perhaps in a town where we don't live, most of us have a local Starbucks that we pretty much frequent every day. I mean, for those of you true Starbucks aficionados, your barista knows your name. They probably have your drink waiting for you before you even open the door because they know what time you get there, right? It's a very personal relationship with your local coffee shop. So there's absolutely reason for Starbucks to engage in local marketing down to the very neighborhood level. Now, again, we'll talk about investment and how they go about it, but there's certainly rationale for it. Best Buy. So again, national brand, national advertising, things like 12 Force have garnered them a lot of recognition. But what I admire about Best Buy is they actually approach local from an operational perspective. They have an amazing understanding of the customers who live in their trade area, who they are, what they're interested, what products they buy, and they actually adjust their store offering according to who's surrounding them because they have that intelligence. So when you go into a Best Buy, to your most local Best Buy, whether you realize it or not, their product mix is geared to what you're probably interested in. I don't know if it's totally obvious or not, but I've been known to eat a hamburger or two. So Twisted Root is a local burger joint in Dallas. They actually have 4 locations now. It's sort of becoming it's quickly becoming a Dallas institution. But they have different locations within the market, within Deep Ellum, Richardson. These are all suburbs and areas of Dallas. Deep Ellum, Richardson, Allen, and some other places, and those are all very different areas. So if they want to tie into their local, to become these people's local burger joint, they have to go about it in a unique way depending on where they are, because all those neighborhoods and the people who live there are all very different. So you can understand from a brand perspective, there's a lot of ways to understand how local you should be based on whether it's inherent in your brand to have a local association like Shine or Bach, or whether you're Netflix and it doesn't make any sense to be very local at all, or whether you're a national brand like Pepsi or Best Buy, and there are ways to associate yourself locally but still have that national presence. Second question, do I have the data and analytics capabilities to know if the upside justifies the investment? I would say over the last 4 or 5 years, we have, at Tracy Locke, done a Herculean effort in improving our analytics capabilities, because we found that a lot of our clients didn't possess those. So what they didn't understand from a local perspective was, okay, I want to be more local. That's great. All right, I want to target right down to the neighborhood. But when we would go in and we would do a business case for them, what they would find was that they could never make their numbers by going as local as they did. So this is about understanding your business goals. What numbers do you have to make? Are there markets of opportunity? And if there are, how big does that local radius need to be? Now, for a local mom and pop burger joint like Twisted Root, that radius isn't very big, and the investment that they're going to be able to make digitally probably isn't going to, probably is going to justify the upside. But if you're Ford, GM, Dodge, a car brand who knows that certain markets are more valuable than others, certain customers are more valuable than others, certain dealerships are more valuable than others, you really need to do an in-depth analysis to understand where that upside lies, whether it's at a regional level, a state level, a market level, or even areas within that market. And if you can't make those numbers meet your business goals, you need to widen that radius. Or if your radius is so big that you're going to blow your numbers out of the water, it's all about right-sizing goals versus how local you want to be. I mean, if the numbers are so big within a certain trade area, then maybe, because you're going to blow your business goals out of the water, maybe you can actually specialize even more. Maybe you can break up that radius and localize each quadrant, or however it might work. And again, tracking results, very important. I know yesterday we saw some great examples of dashboards, but we actually do business tracking for the U.S. Air Force. Recruitment is a huge initiative for them. I mean, that's where they pour all their advertising dollars, right? So there's a general who wants to know exactly how well everything is performing. So we have to have very complex dashboards that'll show them which recruiting efforts are working, what's happening at these locations, which areas within the country are producing more people coming and enlisting. So it's a pretty important initiative. Pepsi Refresh, again, at the local level, we had to show them what was working and how. Okay, from a bandwidth perspective, 2 questions. Is my client willing to commit to the resources necessary to execute a local strategy? And is my organization built to execute a local marketing strategy? So, speaking to the first, your client's commitment. There's probably going to be more investment on their part for more complex programs. I mean, one national program versus 20 or 30 localized programs across the country is much more complex. It takes manpower, it takes time. These are things that the client has to be willing to invest in, and consequently, you need to be able to show them the business upside to show them that their investment's going to be justified. Understanding that there will be field teams, digital tools, specialized creative messages, heavy non-traditional tactics, market events, and things like that, in-store marketing. Certainly the willingness to experiment, fail, and adjust. Local marketing is a very inexact science. It is critical that you, and I'll talk about this in a second, that you have local market experts from your side. Probably the most important thing you can do as an agency, if you're going to do local marketing, is to be a local market expert. Some organizations like Pepsi, like Pizza Hut, have field teams that are, that specialize in certain markets, understand those intimately. Some national brands actually believe in going around and hiring agencies within specific locales because they inherently know those markets better. Just depends on what's right for the marketer. But understanding community values, rituals, jargon, current issues. If you're marketing in Pittsburgh, knowing that everybody from Pittsburgh hates everybody from Philadelphia is kind of important, right? I mean, it is. And the way that you can play that up and message certain things can make that contextual messaging more relevant. Building local relationships with media. It's sort of a fine balance for local versus national, right? I mean, I think that the going theory on a national brand like Pepsi or GM or somebody is like, okay, when does it make sense to buy local and when does it make sense to buy national? And it really depends on your coverage. The theory is once you get, once your stores, your distribution, whatever it might be, gets to be between 40 and 60% of everything across the country, they'll tell you it's time to at least have some level of national advertising. So it's that balance between national and local. But from a local media perspective, those are the ones who can help educate you on the market, who can help activate, who can make things much more relevant, especially if you don't happen to live in that market. Relationships with CVB, local vendors, et cetera. Have brand planners, strategic planners, whatever you happen to call them within your team, who understand how to add brand value at a local level. Again, tying a brand association to what the values of that community are. It's not necessarily an easy thing to do, and a strategic planner is a great tool in being able to do that. Internally, be ready for high volume production. There are a lot of things that make local marketing magical, and it's the ability for an agency to react to local marketing events within a week, within days, and tie their messaging to something that just happened. So if a new convention center opened or some new business, some new corporation just moved their headquarters into a market and you want to leverage that, that's something you have to be able to react to pretty quick. If there's, if the Dallas Mavericks win the NBA title, which is not going to happen, you want to be able to do something very quickly within that local market because obviously it's going to resonate with those residents. And again, have those measurement tools in place. Be digitally brilliant. The way, the most efficient way you can be local and personal, obviously, is through digital, whether it's location-based, whether it's social media. But you have to have, SEO is huge for local, huge. Localized ad serving, location-based, et cetera. Be willing to invest in your staff. Local marketing is not a simple thing to execute, and you have to have a staff, with the experience, but capable of handling the volume, the fast pace, and managing relationships across the country. Anybody, I'm sure from Draft ACB, from Coors Light bottler perspective, this is a pretty complex process, managing your relationships with all those bottlers across the country. We have that with Pepsi, we have that with Pizza Hut, even with HP on a global level. It's important. Be willing to employ field marketing teams. Again, for Pepsi, we have field marketers across the country with matched up with different distributors. That's a pretty important part of it too. And I think that's about it. Oh, so P&G will tell you that their marketing is a store-back approach. And I think local marketing, if you're doing it right, is an inside-out approach. And what you're doing is understanding how local you're going to be, what are those most relevant moments that you can create at that most local level, and then build out, because those best relationships you're going to build are at that point of sale or at that, as close as you're going to be to that market. Understand what's happening there and how to build around that, and then work out. Then work back to print, back to outdoor, back to broadcast. But understanding at the very core of your local marketing plan, understanding what consumers are thinking, where you can interact, how you can interact, what messages are going to resonate the best. That's the most important thing. So let's see here. There it is. Any questions? Hecklers. All right.
Actually, an interesting situation that you may be familiar with the Chase Bank Christmas tree issue, when corporate made the call to remove the Christmas tree because they had had just a
Yeah, and I think it's also important, I talked about being digitally brilliant and having the social media infrastructure to be able to read what's going on in Twitter and Facebook and the like, around, and just RSS feeds from news outlets in that particular market can make your organization be much more reactive to that situation. So again, having that intimate market knowledge of what's going on and who the key players are and how to react quickly is critical. Anything else? Crickets. All right. Yeah.
All right. So you may have heard the, I believe it's Kingsford doing the start grilling spots in Texas. They got a group of guys who have buddy who live in Minnesota, and they're, hey, what's up? Well, I got 6 feet of snow, and there's a big hairy man out in my driveway who wants to go ice fishing. And they're like, oh, we're playing volleyball, we're having fun. So that's obviously localized for warmer climates. So when you develop your local market strategy, that to me makes sense. What do they do when they've got to go and talk to people in Minnesota?
Well,
Do they need a local marketing strategy for all of those areas, or do you sometimes just develop a local strategy for certain areas that, as you said, have potential for a greater return on investment?
yeah, I think it's a matter of, again, understanding where your business goals are going to be met and focus on those areas. Not every market is going to get the same localized amount of attention. So if your Kingsford sales in Texas are probably going to be significantly more than what they would be in Minnesota, because nobody's wanting to grill in Minnesota in the middle of January, except for the most brave of souls, you probably want to focus your spending there. And it's not as important to have that comprehensive local campaign, but that doesn't mean that you still can't do certain things digitally within or direct mail. Here we are at Quantum, to speak to them, but on a lower investment and honestly expecting less return.
So then in terms of justifying your investment for a brand like that,
Right.
seasonal, then local marketing would make more sense than national, just because of the economies of scale and efficiencies?
Well,
Media spend?
again, you have to analyze distribution, and it sort of gets into that. If you are a fairly ubiquitous brand like Kingsford is across the country, you certainly owe it to all of your local distributors, where you have to push sales no matter what to have some level of national presence. It's just understanding where that local layer can be added, where that upside exists.
Marketing versus local marketing. So if you didn't hear that because I wasn't on, what's the difference in location-based marketing and local marketing?
That's a good question. Location-based marketing can be local, but it isn't inherently local. In other words, you could get a request from Starbucks to go stop by via Foursquare and check in at any Starbucks, and you'll get something. That is a location-based effort. But when they ask you to go stop by your local Starbucks and check in and get something, what you're doing is you're establishing a relationship with that local store. So it's a subtle nuance, but again, it's all about contextual messaging. It doesn't necessarily change the program, it doesn't change the way you're going about it, but the messaging is what, the nuances and the messaging I think are what distinguish the two.
Direct interaction you have with the local retailers themselves. So if you talk about GM, are you working with, the Chevy dealer in South Dallas, for example, or it's all driven out of Portland?
I think it completely depends on the organization. Organizations like GM will tend to have regional marketing management, sometimes a local market manager, depending on what the value of that particular market happens to be. And so what you're usually doing is you have they're your conduit to those local markets. So sometimes they can enable those relationships with local dealers if you want to do some sort of event at a particular dealership. But I think what we found, and this exists for Pepsi and Pizza Hut as well, is that you tend to deal at the regional level first, organizationally, and then you start to drill down where those opportunities exist. Anything else? All right, nobody fell asleep. Good deal. All right. Excellent. Thanks, guys.